It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you go to either Spreaker or Patreon and you put in A.J. Weberman, A.J. Weberman is a historical, iconic figure. Okay, this guy's been around forever. Yippies, Dylan, JFK researcher, incredible friend of John Lennon. Just incredible content from A.J. Weberman. And we've done about 3 or 4 shows with him previously, and we have him with us today. Mr. A.J. Weberman, are you there?
I'm here. I am here.
Thank you so much, man, for coming back. Remind the audience, though, who is A.J. Weberman?
Well, I invented the word Dylanology, which you see in every article about Bob Dylan. Of course, they don't mention me because I'm the anti-Dylan. You know, I'm known as the #1 Dylan hater, according to the New York Times. It did a big story about me about 2 weeks ago. And the web version got 1 million views, 1 million page views. So people are interested in what I have to say, but I don't get too many platforms to say it. And you know, I went with Corey Kilgallen, who was a reporter for the Times, and we went to the movie together. You know, I was jeering and making noise and getting revenge on all the Dylan fans that hate me. You know, and so that a lot of people got really mad. Because one thing I hate is people who make noise in the movies. But I couldn't take it, you know. It was like the whole thing was, you know, they should have had a disclaimer. Any resemblance to Bob Dylan, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Because this had nothing, this was totally made up. They have him coming to New York and getting off at the Holland Tunnel, at the end of the Holland Tunnel on Canal Street, which is ridiculous. You know, they're not going to drop him off on Canal Street.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, yeah.
But the fact is that he got there much earlier than people thought, you know, and he was there a month earlier. This is what he told Robert Shelton, who was the New York Times folk music critic, who gave him his first big break, which led to the album CL 1776, Bob Dylan, where he does a lot of covers of black folk singers like, you know, I'm Fixing to Die. He was fixing to die later on in life, fixing with heroin. Anyway, he says, I have a friend, he is a junkie. He's a junkie now. We came to New York together. He wrote plays. We hung out on 43rd Street, hustled for 2 months, and did everything. I got a ride here in December 1960. I came down to the Village in February 61, but was here in New York in December 1960. Now that makes sense because in his song Talking New York, he says, grabbed hold of a subway car after a rock and reel and roll and ride. I landed up on the downtown side, Greenwich Village, you know. So he was that indicates he wasn't initially in the Village, he was somewhere else. Anyway, he says, hustling with this cat, I came to New York City from Minnesota. I was not scared of people, you dig? You name it, we did it. Sometimes you'd make 100 a night. Really, from 4 in the afternoon until 3 or 4 in the morning. Yeah. I wish if I would have known you could have made that kind of money at the time, I would have considered becoming a male hustler. We would make $150 or $250 a night. $250 in 1960 is worth $2,608.37. We'd hang around bars. Cats would pick us up and chicks would pick us up. It's like Midnight Cowboy. I call him Midnight Jew Boy.
Well, what, JJ, did they come to you as a consultant and trying to get some inside info from you?
No, they didn't. But they called me about the John Lennon film, that one-on-one thing, where they recreate his crib there in Bank Street.
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, it's going to be in the theaters in April. It was at the Venice Film Festival. They called me up about that one, They have a recording of me and Yoko speaking with each other. Yoko was trying to get me to lay off Bob Dylan to try and get Dylan to do a concert for John Sinclair, who was locked up for marijuana in Michigan, just as I was. I was busted in Michigan in 1964 for pot. I was facing 10 years minimum mandatory on possession because they found a couple of grams. They vacuumed my pocket, and 20 years minimum mandatory on the sale. So I had to come back to New York City, get a job, save the money, and pay off the district attorney. And all of a sudden, the whole thing disappeared.
I got a buddy of mine. He just did 25 for pot, man. He just got out like 5 years ago. I know, man. I know.
That's no good.
I know, man.
But I also had to see a shrink at the time, Dr. Curian. And then later on, when I was doing my Kennedy assassination research, I found that was the psychiatrist that Oswald went to.
Get out of here,
when he lived in New York City. That was weird. But the weirdest thing was... Wait,
was it like a court-ordered psychiatrist? They sent you to a court-ordered psychiatrist?
Yeah, the youth program.
Wow.
He was a truant. So they sent him... They wanted to see why he was not going to school. So they sent him to Dr. Curian to see what was wrong with him. Why he was a truant. So, but another weird coincidence was in the summer of '63, I decided to hitchhike to Mexico, to the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico City. So I stopped off in Distrito Federal, Mexico City, before going down to the Yucatan. And I stayed at the Hotel Comercio. And that was the same hotel Oswald would stay in a month later. Of all the places to end up, I ended up in that same crummy hotel where I spent half my time in bed and half my time in the bathroom.
Well, AJ, let me ask you this: all this kismet, all this crazy stuff. Do you ever think maybe that you were being handled and manipulated, kind of the same way Oswald was? You're rubbing up against all these guys.
No, I wasn't manipulated. Later on, there was some manipulation. When they decided, first they took my website down.
Right.
AmeliaBiden.com. They sent me New York State sent me a bill for $80,000 for 1 year in back taxes, which is ridiculous. I would have had it made $500,000 to pay that much money.
Yeah.
In taxes. So, then I had to cool the website for a while because the advertising stopped, and all I was doing was getting harassed by the state tax people. So I took it off. But then all of a sudden, when they wanted to get rid of Biden, and put Kamala in, the website reappeared. And the advertising started again, miraculously.
So the website's called Nelia Biden.
I was manipulating.
NeliaBiden.com. What's on that website? Tell us.
That's the story of how Biden had a hand in his first wife's death. The thing that got me was the first thing he did was he blamed it on a truck driver. He said the truck driver had a liquid lunch, even though they gave the truck driver a breathalyzer test and a blood test. And there was nothing, there was no alcohol in his bloodstream. So I began to wonder about that. then I found out that all the documents had been missing. You know, they were gone. All the documents. I wrote a letter to the state attorney of Pennsylvania, made a Freedom of Information request, and they told me there were no documents pursuant to your request. What happened to the documents? This guy was a U.S. senator at the time, and you know, you think that, I even asked the judge, did you keep a set of documents? No, I didn't keep a set of documents. So we don't know whether she was drunk or not, you know. What happened was, it was around Christmas time. And I think she found out about the affair. I'm not sure when. But, you know, she started to she had problems with drinking before because he made some kind of he contacted Hunter, and Hunter said, "Oh, Pops, I'm sorry, I'm such a mess up," you know. And he wrote back, "It's not your fault. You inherited from me and Mom, and Mom was his birth mother." So that means she was drinking. Also, Jill Giancopa, that's her real name. She claims that first of all, she claims her parents came into Ellis Island. I went to the Ellis Island, you know, the rolls of people who entered into the country around the time she claims, and there was no Giancopa who entered, or Giancopa, because she uses both spellings. You know, and the only one who entered was like a 6-year-old girl had that name. So she's lying about that. The parents were probably overstays, you know, and they were illegal immigrants. They should have been deported.
Wasn't she like a babysitter for the Bidens?
Yeah, she was a babysitter for the Bidens. You know, so, you know, the thing is that she claims she didn't meet him until, I think, 74 or something like that, you know. But then when she says, talking about a tweet about the first conversation, she says, "Oh, you know, I talked to this guy and he told me, I talked to him, he was such a nice guy, blah, 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 you know." And he said, "Watch, I'm speaking at the convention tonight. I'll be on television, watch me." There was no convention in 76. The conventions were in no convention in 74, I'm sorry. The conventions were in 72 in Miami. I know because I was there, because John Lennon gave me $20,000 with the express purpose of starting a riot at the Republican convention, you know, which we did, the Zippies, and, you know, that's actually how garbology, the name.
Another thing you invented, garbology.
Yeah, I invented that word.
Yeah.
But actually, the Miami Police Department did. You know, after the last night of the convention, when we slashed their tires and started a riot, they came to the house where we were staying at in Coconut Grove, and they raided the house. And they you know, held a automatic pistol on me and started kicking me. And they started saying, before I was a garbageologist, they said, "There's the garbologist." So I said, I might as well get something out of this deal. So I changed garbageologist to garbologist. So it was the Miami Police Department that invented the name. But that's, you know, that's neither here nor there. But that was to explain, to make it sound scientific, my spying on people through their garbage, you know. So,
yeah, unfortunately today, with everything's done online, you don't get that much from the garbage anymore. But you know, what are you going to do?
Now with the shredders,
right?
Right.
AJ,
you know,
before we get too far away from Biden, okay, and NeliaBiden.com, where you tell the whole story about the first wife and that kind of stuff. Did you ever look into that whole thing with Danny Casolaro and the Promise software and all that stuff?
No, I didn't.
I got a letter for you from Biden. I'm going to send you. Biden interfered with the whole investigation into that story when he was working for the House Judiciary Committee. So I'll send you that letter. No one knows about that letter. I got it straight from the guy, Bill Hamilton, who was in the center of that whole Octopus Promise software deal. I'm surprised he didn't look into it.
When you read about Biden in the New York Times, they say he shepherded the crime bill through Congress. He didn't shepherd it. He spun.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Sponsored it, along with what's his name, Strom Thurmond.
Yep.
And I think the whole idea behind that crime bill is to put blacks in jail. Because Thurmond was a racist, and he was one of the few people that actually used the N-word on the floor of Congress. So, Biden is responsible for a lot of people going to jail who didn't belong there.
So, AJ, what do you make of this whole situation we're in right now with Trump kind of accumulating power from all the different branches of government? How do you feel about this? You nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. He's the head of the executive branch. He's not impinging on Congress or the judicial branch. He's in charge of these organizations, of these bureaus, departments, and he can do what he wants with them, basically.
What about all these tech bros like Musk and Zuckerman coming in here, and Amazon, Bezos?
I don't know about Zuckerman, but Musk is incorruptible. How can you corrupt the richest man in the world? How can you bribe somebody like that? It's impossible.
I tell you,
they're finding a lot of crazy stuff the taxpayers are paying for. A lot of transsexual stuff and LGBT queer stuff. That is ridiculous. I think it's really good.
Which brings us to a great transition, okay? Because I saw a comment you made on Facebook one time. Now, you were friends with George Soros?
No, I was never friends with George Soros. Allen Ginsberg was.
Right.
And I was friends with Ginsberg.
Ginsberg
when Soros came to the United States, he lived with a German national of all places, in New York, Christopher Street.
Right.
Which is the main drag for, the gay area of Greenwich Village, And Ginsberg used to visit him there at his apartment in Christopher Street. So I knew Ginsberg, but I never knew Soros.
Yeah, Ginsberg was a notorious member of NAMBLA and a pedophile, notoriously.
Yeah, they got rid of his card. In fact, when I went over there once, because I had one of my crazy extrapolations, or it was an interpretation of All Along the Watchtower. It took me a long time to catch on to Dylan. So they said there was one line, the wind began to howl. So I went over to ask Alan about it because I figured the wind was Bob Dylan blowing in the wind. The howl was, his poem, I've seen the best minds of my generation destroy by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, walking down Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. So I went over and knocked on his door. And he came to the door. He opened the door. He was naked. And I looked in, and there was a kid. There was a scantily dressed little boy sitting on a couch in the background. I saw it myself. He was a pedophile. But people are willing to forget this because of him supposedly being a great poet, which I don't believe he was anyway. Stuff like what I just recited is prose, in a sense. So that was the thing. People don't realize that a lot of Soros' stuff, the gay stuff, supporting the gay groups, and the drug stuff comes from Ginsberg, who he hung out with when he first came to New York.
Which brings us to something else that you were involved in. You wrote a book about Rudy Giuliani and his...
Yeah, Rudy, yeah.
Okay, what can you tell us about that?
Rudy, man. poor Rudy. I think a lot of the damages against him are punitive. They're just trying to teach him a lesson rather than actual damages where those two ladies lost money or they're standing in the community. They're just out to get Rudy and, bankrupt him, which they did. But it was a stupid thing that he said. They were passing thumb drives like bags of crack to one another. First of all, where are they gonna get the algorithm to change the voting, on a thumb drive? It was ridiculous. Rudy got carried away with himself. Homo Thug, The Secret Life of Rudy Giuliani. It turns out he was bisexual, and his butt buddy was Alan Plaka, who lives in Florida now, who's retired, and also has a concealed carry permit. What does a retired priest need a concealed carry permit? Because Plaka, he molested a lot of kids. In fact, he gave one kid that he was dealing with money, that he was probably having sex with money, and the kid went out and OD'd. He knew the kid was into dope, and the kid OD'd, and with the money that Plaka had given him, So this guy Plaka is and he was in charge. Plaka was in charge of, determining which priests were, child rapists. So it was like, of all people to put in charge of that.
Right. So Rudy's longtime friend was a Catholic priest who was an alleged.
They were like, Rudy was in. He was in a boxing club. If anybody called him a gay, he'd knock him out. And they also had an opera club after school. He started an opera club at a Catholic high school because they couldn't have an after-school gay club while everybody else was listening to rock and roll. Rudy and his buddies were listening to opera. So, and also the Lisp, and his wife reported that he'd spend time with Plaka alone in their room and close the door, and they were meditating together and praying together, So,
and Rudy gave this priest a job at his law firm too. He was being paid from the law firm for a while.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So,
now, but your investigation into Rudy led you to a fellow named Lawrence Ray.
Yeah, what a character he was. You know what happened with Lawrence Ray? I'm living at 345 East 94th Street, right on the Upper East Side. And Ray, he was a couple of blocks away hiding out. He had about 10 cell phones. And, so the cops were looking for him. So I went out to walk my dog, and when I come home, my wife tells me, the cop, there was about 10 cops here. They said they were looking for a gangbanger and they wanted to search the place. Because I left messages on Ray before he went underground. I left messages on his machine. Hey, Larry, call me back, man. Where are you? What happened to you, man? And so they got those messages and they figured Larry Ray was hiding in the house. So they told my wife they were looking for a gangbanger. So I told everybody in the building, oh, man, there was a gangbanger loose in the building yesterday. But that was just a subterfuge to search the apartment.
Because in real life, Larry Ray was like some kind of former intelligence agent, right? He was an informant for the FBI, best friends and best man of Bernie Kerik.
Yeah, and also Gorbachev. He arranged a meeting with Gorbachev, I forget who, with Giuliani and some other.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
He was an amazing guy. And I don't know, how did he get away with living in the dormitory of a girls' college for so long?
He moved into his daughter's dorm at Sarah Lawrence College and then started pimping out her friends for $8,000 a day. This guy was...
Wow. That's a lot of money for a prostitute for $2,000. I'd want a bunch of them, not just one.
Yeah, especially when he had this crappy website, too. See, he had to be pimping these girls to people he knew, friends of his, and that had a lot of money.
It's unbelievable.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
How he got away with that. Just unbelievable.
But now, he gave you information about Carrick or Rudy?
Carrick and Rudy. He claimed that they had a deal with the laundry going, where they would send the laundry from Rikers Island to one particular cleaner.
Oh.
And he would, but that doesn't make sense, really. I figured they do the laundry in Rikers. I don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did. I know it at a lot of prisons they have a laundry room.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. I've never been to the Rock, and I never intend to go there. So he claimed that they were had a deal with someone who was doing the cleaning, and they'd get a kickback on that. I have all these tapes. I have to put them on the internet.
Yeah.
That's all my conversations with them.
I forget who it was. Recently, in the past couple of years, someone asked to get in contact with you, and I put you in contact with you. And he was telling me that you're concerned about your archives and your library after you pass. Have you found a home for that stuff?
Yeah, Cornell University has the A.J. Weberman collection.
God bless you, man.
And also, I sent it to the Texas School Book Depository. They have a library. So, I sent all the Kennedy stuff to the PSBD, from whence it all originated, because, basically, I solved the Kennedy assassination. I was down in D.C., and we had put on a demonstration, who stole John Kennedy's brain.
Yeah.
And afterwards, Bernard Fensterwald was putting on a conference there, and Tom Forsato, who's the founder of High Times, he disrupted the Fensterwald's conference because we believed Fensterwald had some kind of intelligence community connection. We believed he was a CIA guy, but because he represented a lot of people, like he represented Paisley and some other people who had CIA connection. But I think in retrospect, he was more like a lobbyist for organized crime.
I'm sorry, who are we talking about?
Bernard Fensterwald.
Okay.
Anyway, he put on this conference. So Forsyth turned the table over. So then afterwards, I was sitting outside. We got kicked out. I was sitting outside, smoking some hash. And this girl comes over and says, "Hey, can I smoke some of this?" And yeah, sure. We went back to our dorm room. We started making out and listening to rock music, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And, all of a sudden this guy yells out, he wants to come in. A guy named Steve Soder, who's Carl Sagan's, number one researcher. So he comes up. I said, "Oh, let him in. We'll just get rid of him." I felt sorry for the guy, And so we let him up. And then he shows me these pictures of these tramps that were picked up on the Kennedy assassination. He says, "Oh, I thought this was Frank Sturgis." But Bernard Fensterwald told me that he was did a height study, and there was a 2-inch discrepancy between the tramp and Frank Sturgis. I says, "You moron, you believe this guy? What's wrong with you, man? He's a CIA agent," which I believed at the time, or a CIA asset. And then I says, "Yeah, the guy does look like Frank, who now we call Fat Frank, because after I got to know the guy." Anyway, and then I looked at the other guy and I says, "This guy looks like Howard Hunt." If both these guys were involved in Watergate, so I says, wow, I got to check these guys out. So I checked Frank out, and sure enough, he was in the Warren Commission documents. So I went to the National Archives. I went through every document, starting from Commission Document 1, Commission Exhibit 1, all the way to the end. I spent days and days in the archives. And, he claimed that Oswald was in Bayfront Park in Miami and started a fight with some of the people in his group, the International Anti-Communist Brigade. So then I began to look at Frank's history, and, I did a lot of research on him. And they were running raids on Cuba, which they were going to be Kennedy was going to jail him for violations of the Neutrality Act. So then I looked at his friend, who was also doing this, Gerald Patrick Hemming, and he seemed suspicious too. But what happened with Hemming was I did an article for the National Enquirer on Oswald's 201 file, which I believed was an employment file. And so I went down to Lantana, and they called various CIA guys, who defected, and they said, oh, Weberman's got a smoking gun here, this is it, So they paid us a lot for the article. I ran a front page in the Enquirer. And they said, oh, there's this guy named Gerald Patrick Hemming, and he's, making all kinds of sounds. He's being busted for transfer of a silencer in Miami, and he's saying, why don't you ask me about the Kennedy assassination? Why don't you ask me about the King assassination? Why are you doing this petty stuff with this transfer of a silencer? So I went to Hemming's. They drove me to Hemming's office, and there it was, man. Everybody in my book, Coup d'etat, was walking in and out of that office. So I got friendly with Hemming, and one night he said, okay, I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to give you some pictures. When you give it to me back, I don't want them to stick together. I said, don't worry about it, man. And it was the third tramp.
Wow.
It was a guy named Dan Carswell. That was his pseudonym. His real name is David Lamar Chris. And he was head of the Technical Services Division for the CIA. And they sent him down to Cuba to plant a bug in the under the Chinese Communist News Service, because they wanted to know whether Castro was going to go align himself with China or Russia. But while Chris was there, he had an affair with a DGI agent and blew the whole operation, and his wife was going crazy. She didn't know about the affair. His wife, Wilma, was going nuts. She was threatening everybody. I'm going to tell everybody about this if you don't get my husband out, And she was a real character. I called her up, and the minute I did, she called the CIA and reported my call.
Yeah, I tried to interview.
If found out about it, what he did, man, that would have been it. Anyway, he turned out to be the third tramp. Very interesting guy. Seems like he invented the fuel cell in order to power listening devices. That the battery wouldn't wear out quickly. And so he was the third tramp, and he was locked up in La Cabana Fortress prison until he was released in a prisoner exchange. And he hooked up with Hemming and Sturgis and that whole crew in Miami. But the smoking gun was Ruth Paine's garage. Here we go. You want to know about Ruth Paine, right?
Right.
So we're back to Ruth Paine in the pain in the butt. That's what I call her. And so they found a roll of undeveloped Minox film in her garage. So I had it developed, and it turned out there was a picture of Hemming in that roll of film. It was a picture of him with someone who looked like a Filipino, because they were at Subic Bay together, Hemming and Oswald. And he had the guy in a garret and was holding the rope in the picture. Hemming. And Hemming had told me before this that when they had free time from the Marines, they'd go huck hunting. They'd go and try and kill communist Filipinos.
Huh.
So there it was. This guy, a lot of, Jerome Corsi, he was involved in the whole thing. He was a big fan of mine, and I had lunch with him at the Harvard Club. And, he looked at these pictures and he said, man, that's a smoking gun,
Well, when did you get a hold of that film?
I got a hold of that film years ago. I forget when. I have all the records. I have all the paperwork.
I was talking to Max Good, who just did that film about the Ruth Paine. And it's a pretty good film if you see it. He interviews her. She makes some admissions to working for the CIA. And she was also down like in Nicaragua and stuff like that. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. She admitted working for the CIA?
I'll send you a link to it. I think I have a screener still. I'll send it to you. But he told me...
I think it was her sister worked for the CIA.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. I'm going by memory and I'm old.
Yeah.
But Max Good told me
my father was a democratic socialist who was used by Angleton.
Really?
Like the story is that, Hemming and Oswald hooked up together when they came back. And they both went down to the Cuban mission in Monterey, California. And the Fidelists had taken it over, and Hemming, he offered his services as a pilot. And they took him up on the offer. Oswald was turned down. So Hemming sent Oswald to visit Angleton, and Angleton gave him a mission to pretend to be a defector and give the information needed to shoot down the U-2 in order to sabotage the upcoming summit, because Angleton was a hardliner and he didn't believe in negotiating with the Soviets. He just wanted, to wipe them out, basically. He was one of these guys that wanted to have a preemptive strike after World War II before the Russians could develop a nuclear device. So that's what Oswald did. He went there and he was in Atsugi, but he didn't have access to that information. But Angleton did, and Angleton gave it to him. And they shot down Francis Gary Powers, who says he believes that Oswald's defection and his being shot down were connected. And how did Francis Gary Powers die? His helicopter ran out of gas. He was running a traffic helicopter in L.A. And all of a sudden it ran out of gas. And
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Crashed down his helicopter as well.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So then Oswald comes back from the Soviet Union, and Hemming gets the idea, with this guy being a defector, he's going to be a perfect patsy for the Kennedy assassination. So they have Oswald do all kinds of stuff with, setting up a Fair Play for Cuba committee, trying to go to Mexico City, and, go to get a visa from the Soviets to go to Cuba so he could return from Cuba. And it would look like, he went there to learn how to attended an assassin training school and came back and assassinated the president.
Hey,
so Hemming, he was something, man. Hemming was he was a character.
Yeah, I reached out to his son, Felipe. I tried to get an interview with him, and he kind of blew me off. He says he's working some high-level Homeland Security job, and he only wants to talk off the record. But does he know anything?
He might, but the family's not going to talk.
Yeah.
Because that leads to the Martin Luther King thing. And, because the third tramp, Chris, he looks just like the sketch of Martin Luther King's assassin. I was there with Frank's nephew, Jim Hunt, who provided his alibi. And, one of the guys that Jim Hunt was right, he wrote a book about Frank.
Yeah.
And one of the guys told me that they were going to write that he was the one that alibied him for the Rockefeller Commission. And in the book, they were going to write that he just made that up, that he didn't see Frank that day. But the Rockefeller Commission decided it can't be determined with certainty where Hunt and Sturgis were on the day of the assassination, because family members can't be trusted. Hunt claimed he was in Walling's restaurant, Walling's Chinese grocery store. So Hunt sued me for saying he was involved in the Kennedy assassination.
But that's E. Howard Hunt, as opposed to James Hunt, who's the nephew of Sturgis.
Yeah, E. Howard Hunt.
Right.
Yeah, E. Howard Hunt. Very great. He was a patriot. I'm not going to question that. So, so anyway, I got friendly with Hemming. And so, we're deposing Hunt, periodically in Miami. So Hunt says, the first deposition, he says, I was at Walling's grocery store. So then I was working for Congressman Henry Gonzalez, and he gave me a stack pass to the Library of Congress. So I went through the crisscross directory, and I found there was a Walling's grocery store. And so when I got back to where I was staying, which is basically the Yippie house, Dana Beale rented a whole house there, which we called the Yippie Consulate, And so I called Hemming, and I says, oh, man, me, I always get a little, exaggerate. I said, oh, man, I found Mr. Walling. I didn't find him. I just found that he existed. And Walling says that he doesn't remember Hunt being there that day. So Hemming says, yeah, AJ, you do your homework. Okay, so the next time we come in for a deposition, we ask Hunt, where were you on November 22? So Hunt says, I've been saying all this time that I was at Walling's grocery store, but I've been thinking about it. And I wasn't at Walling's. I was at Hang Hing's, All of a sudden he changes his alibi because he knew that he thought that I was going to bring Mr. Walling as a witness, in the libel trial, which he dropped at the last minute anyway, because I was putting him on trial for the Kennedy assassination. He wasn't putting me on trial for libel.
So
like
AJ,
when I had the press.
What do you make of a St. John Hunt and that video, the deathbed confession of E. Howard Hunt?
It's true. It's true. He didn't say he was one of the tramps. He said he was involved in the cleanup, which is very interesting because I look at that as killing the witnesses.
You know what?
I don't know if
St. John Hunt works for Roger Stone now.
Oh, good for him.
Okay.
Because, Roger Stone was going to make Coup d'etat in a movie, but then
really?
L. Fletcher Prouty told him, Weberman's crazy, he's a yippie, he's a pot smoker. Don't do it. And, L. Fletcher Prouty eventually worked for Spotlight, which was Liberty Lobby, which was the residue of the Nazi network during World War II. They eventually went out of business because they had an argument between the Institute for Historical Review and them who's going to get the money from the Edison estate. Thomas Alva Edison, he left a lot of money to these two entities. So eventually Spotlight went out of business, But they were the usual Nazi stuff. No gas chambers.
Yeah.
Bombing of Dresden, all of this stuff. And the number one congressman, the one they attended all their meetings, was Ron Paul. Anyway.
That's right, yeah. He used to write for them.
So as far as the Kennedy assassination and Frank Sturgis went, I testified before the parliament in Portugal, because some of the people that were involved in Camarade, which was the assassination of the prime minister and his consort, the defense minister and his wife, the pilot and the co-pilot, and another aide that was on a plane. Camarade, this plane crashed out in Camarade was a suburb of Lisbon. So the people, some people who were in prison, they came forward for other stuff. They came forward and said that Frank Sturgis had put us up to this assassination plot. So I went there and testified about Frank Sturgis to the Portuguese Parliament. They had a translator, and it was very interesting. And Jim Hunt was there. Jim Hunt was there, who was Frank's nephew, supplied Frank's alibi. Anyway, we were having dinner. So Jim told me that Frank always said he was in Memphis at the time that King was assassinated. You know, which is interesting because the picture of the original picture of King's assailant is a sketch, looks just like David Chris. You know, so it was the same crew that killed Kennedy, that killed, Martin Luther King. You know,
and the same bunch of Watergate too.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, same bunch. I believe Raoul was a guy named Hargraves, Roy M. Hargraves, who was Hemming's close associate. Hemming gave me a lot of information, you know, because he was down and out, and I had money from pot dealing, so I sent him money. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's wrong. You can't pay for money like that." But anyway, I liked the guy. He visited me on the Bowery. You know, we were walking down the street, and I said, "Oh, look at this guy. This dude. He comes down to rob people on the Bowery, you know." And Hemming tells me everybody's got to make a living. Another time, Dick Gregory came, and somebody had defecated on the door of 6 Bleecker Street. So Gregory comes up and he says, I says, look what happened to your door. I says, yeah. So Gregory says, that must have been a human being. No animal is that dirty. You know. So Gregory helped me, publicize the tramp shots, and it appeared in a lot of newspapers and stuff. And then,
as a matter of fact, when I had St. John Hunt on the show, he said that's how he first started suspecting his father, because he saw your poster.
Yeah, we put posters all over the place. You know, we were a very active group.
Yeah.
In fact, I got a letter of commendation for helping to legalize marijuana from Mayor Adams.
That's right. Yeah, you sent me that. Yeah, but you sent me that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I tell you, so now, by the way, too, you keep talking about James Hunt, who, by the way, he's a law professor. This guy's a law professor.
No, Jim Hunt is a lawyer. He's a lawyer, and he's a really good guy. He finds stray dogs and tries to find hope for them.
So now you and him are working on a book now about this Portugal stuff?
No. All I did was I came back there and I interviewed the people who were involved. A guy named Esteves. We went around Portugal with him, you know, my wife and Esteves and the driver. So we go to a church. My wife is a devout Catholic, but she wanted to go to every church in Lisbon, which we did. So we passed one church when we were with Esteves, and he says, "Oh yeah, this is the one that I bombed and blamed it on the communists." You know. He was really a character, you know, Esteves. So, he was involved in that whole thing.
So, AJ, what are you working on?
I went to the Valley of the Jews. The prison was in the Valley of the Jews. Yeah. And they let me in, and I did a whole interview with the principal involved in that, as in Camarate. So that was interesting. But
What are you working on these days? When you look around the world and you look around...
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
in the country, what are you working on these days?
Now I'm working on my Dylan book, basically. Dylan's poetry, extrapolations of Dylan's poetry. Because it turned out that a lot of the songs had racist subcontent or were like campaign songs for Goldwater. Dylan was a neo-Confederate. You know, that film is just a phony film. You know, it has him. He coming to New York, as I told you before.
Yeah.
He came a month earlier. He was a hooking and a crooking on 40 Deuce. And where was he living? He was living with this guy, Ray Gooch. Now, a lot of the Dylan fans, they say, oh, he's a composite character. He really didn't exist. But I went through the Social Security Death Index, and I found out he did exist. I found out his date of birth, his date of death, and his Social Security number. He was the real thing. Also, so Gooch, according in Chronicles, Gooch had a drug lab. He was refining raw opium and turning it into morphine. You know, and Dylan describes him as a non-integrationist. I heard about this guy when I was living at 146 Sullivan, my next door neighbor, David Moore. Moore was like an A-head and a junkie, right? And, you know, his wife was a semi-retired prostitute. I visited her when Dave was going to work. He was working as a truck driver. Anyway, he heard me playing Dylan all the time, and he said, oh, man, I know Dylan's heroin connection. It's a guy named Ray who lives in the far west village. And his favorite saying is, guns for the Arabs, sneakers for the Jews. So I'm saying, what is Dylan hanging around with somebody like this for who doesn't like the Jews, you know? So Ray Gooch does exist. Dylan admits it for the first time in Chronicles. And Ray's friend, Ray, he was living with a girl named, what was her name? Chloe Keel. Chloe Keel is Ramona. She was from the South, and Dylan intimates she had some kind of connection with the Klan. So, you know, I'm extrapolating Dylan's poetry. Nobody's going to believe it, you know?
Do you ever hear from Dylan these days?
Excuse me?
Do you ever hear from Dylan these days?
We're talking.
Talking to A.J. Weberman here, the legendary A.J. Weberman. NearlyUpBiden.com.
Yeah. No, I don't hear from him, but he sends somebody over to take a picture of me periodically.
Oh, really?
A guy named Joe Gilbert, who's a filmmaker, who's working. His latest thing is a biopic on Barr, you know, from, what's her name?
Roseanne Barr?
Yeah, Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
You know, and how she was canceled.
Yeah.
You know, and he had a Dylan tribute band where they actually let me speak, and he had a lot of people who were in Dylan's original band. So I knew at that time he had some kind of connection with it.
But
How to approve it.
Wasn't there recently an interview?
He comes over and takes a picture of me periodically.
Does he ask you, or he hangs out?
Yeah, I become friends with him.
Okay.
I know him since I got out of prison in 2001. He came around the dog run, and you know, I became friendly with him, with Joel. You know, so you know,
AJ, was there recently an interview with Dylan where he says, I couldn't write those songs today. I don't know how I wrote them. Is that true?
I don't know. I didn't see that, but I don't.
Okay.
You know, like Joe was telling me, he went to the concert and he says Dylan is like a shadow of himself. You He plays the piano. He has the lyrics on top of the piano. And he's really out of it, you know. He's getting old. He's pushing himself.
Yeah.
You know, doing all of this stuff. Now, I don't believe he does those paintings. Now, I followed his art career. Back when I was over hanging out with him in the studio, he took me to the back where he had his paintings. He said, "What do you think of the paintings, man?" I said, "You should stick to writing poetry." He says, "Oh, but what do you get from them?" I said, "I get emptiness, man, emptiness." And he started laughing. There, one of the few times that he laughed. But I hung out with him more than any other rock critic or Dylan, you know, or whatever you want to call me, Dylanologist is what I am. I went over there all the time. I went over there once a week for 2 months and hung out with him from noon until 6 o'clock when his wife called him. She says, I gotta go. That's my wife. I gotta be home. If I'm not home on time, she'll hit me. You know, I says, okay, go. I'll get out of here, you know. But during, you know, we'd hang around and, you know, it was, you could see this church across the street, 3 angels, you know, he wrote a song about it. They'd been there since Christmas morn, you know, so the sun would go down, it would be twilight, and I'd be coming down from caffeine pills that I would drop so I could get my ideas across to him and he couldn't get a word edgewise. You know, so
AJ, let me ask you this because we're running out of time.
Al, if you get into my life, I might gain a soul.
We're running out of time now. I wanted to ask you about Heming. One more thing about Heming.
I'm running out of time too. I'm 80 years old.
I know, bro. I know. How's your health? How you feeling?
I'm feeling fine.
Okay, good. Now
I have bladder cancer. They removed my bladder.
Really?
You know, I have an ostomy bag.
Ugh.
So, you know.
God bless you, man.
I'm a cancer survivor.
Now, back to Heming for a second. These pictures you have of Heming that you got from Ruth Paine's garage, can we see those someplace?
Sure. Where did I put them? Did I have them on anything now?
Yeah, send it to me and I'll put them up on the website.
Okay, I'll send them to you.
Yeah, we're just about out of time. What would you like to leave us with?
If anybody knows a literary agent, let me know because I got to sell this book. It's going to be tough.
Gotcha. All right.
Even with the story in the Times, because Dylan is so popular and I'm so unpopular. So, thank you very much for having me on. And, you know, we appreciate the work that you've done.
Thank you, sir. Listen, you know, man, you can come on anytime you want. You have an open invitation forever, okay, man?
Okay, cool, man.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Adios. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.